This is another video in the 3D engine series, and it's going to concentrate on importing models into the scene. So create a new document. Off of the scene menu item, select import, browse to the model file, the .obj file, select open, and then you'll be presented with this dialog. From here you can select the vertex format, and you can also modify a modify a material and bind that material to every face in the model. So if we deselect normal in the vertex format, press OK, you can see we've imported the teapot successfully, but there's no normal data at the vertices, so the lighting can't do anything. So this is what you're presented with. If we go back, create a new document, import the same model, but this time select normal. If there are normals within the object file that you're going to import, you can override them if you want. There's two methods of overriding. One's called average, where you take the three normals per face, add them together and normalize them. And there's geometric. Geometric will just use the edges and a cross product to create a normal vector. If there are normals within the file, you override them with one of these two. If there are no normals within the file, then really the only thing that you can do is override with geometric, because there would be no normal data to average. So let's not override. This is the more conventional lit Utah teapot. All the lighting works because there's normals at each vertex. So if we go back, actually let's move that over there slightly and import the same thing again, demonstrating overriding data. So we want position information and normal information at every vertex, and we're going to override the data that's in the file for the normals. Instead we're going to create our own normal with a geometric edge cross product. So if we press OK, you can see it's a lot more faceted, but the lighting will have some normal data to work with. So if, for instance, the model that you're going to import doesn't contain any normal data, you could press the override and select geometric and create your own normal data at import time. So if we go back to the import dialog and choose color, so now every vertex is going to have a position, a normal and a color. Position is mandatory. The other four you can choose any combination of. Let's choose something other than white. Again, there may well be color information in the file that you're going to import from. So we choose override, we select a color, we press OK. So that's the same file again, but with a color at every vertex. If we create a new document and we import, choose the same teapot. So now let's select texture. So now every vertex will have a position, normal and texture UV coordinates. Again, we'll select override. So we'll override any UV data that's within the file, and we'll create our own UV coordinates. I've implemented three basic wrap types. There's flat, cylindrical and spherical. So if we select flat, then we will have valid UV coordinates at every vertex, but we also need the actual texture map image that comes from the material. So on the right hand side here, you would need to select texture, and we'll keep the default. If you wanted to change the default, you could browse to another image, but we'll keep the default one. So let's import So here we have the same Utah teapot texture mapped with an image. The image comes from the material that we bound to all the faces, and the UV coordinates come from the vertices. And let's go back, and it's the same thing basically with actually let's cancel that and import the cube. It's the same thing with bump maps. So if we have a vertex that has position, normal and bump UV coordinates, let's override with a flat wrap, and that's all you need to do for the vertex. But again, the bump map image itself comes from the material, so we'll select bump, keep the default, and create a material, bind it to all the faces, and this material will have a bump map in it. So if we rotate the object, you can see there's a bump map there, and another vertex format that's supported. Let's go and have a look at materials now. So we know what we need in terms of vertex attributes to generate a given effect. That effect being lighting, or a particular color, or texture mapping, or bump mapping. But also color can come from a material. So if there's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of vertices, you might not want color in every vertex. Could be memory overheads and so on. You might just want to have one single material to be the source of the color and bind that material to every face in the mesh. So if we choose color and press OK, so here we have a teapot with a color. This time the color is coming from the material, not the vertex format. So if we import again a teapot, we've seen a material where color is being used. We've seen a material with texture and bump map being used, and you can also use cubic environment mapping in a material. So you don't need any vertex format attributes to support cubic environment maps apart from normal data. So in our vertex we'll have a position and a normal vector, and we'll create a material, bind it to every face, and inside that material we'll have a cubic environment map which gives us the reflected rendering style that we wanted. Let's also import and demonstrate the opacity. So if we select the opacity to be 50%, let's say, import the teapot. There you can see the checkerboard background behind the teapot, or you could see any other model in the scene through this particular model because it's not 100% opaque. You can at any time change the opacity via the scene UI pane using the slider. So there we can go to from completely transparent to completely opaque. So there's a demonstration on importing. You off of the scene menu, choose import, browse to the object file that you want, set up the vertex format that you need, and also optionally create a material, set up the attributes in that material and bind it to every face. And also at this time, if you wanted to, you could set up the opacity to be something other than 100%. Press OK, and your model will be imported into the scene.